They told me to have faith, but they didn't tell me what it was going to cost. So I'm walking it out in real time, out loud for all of us. Let's walk it out together. 2 years after coming back to New Orleans, my life looked completely different from the outside. I had a thriving full life business, doing 2 heads a day, 6 days a week. Even had a wig deal with a company called The Wig Dealer, where I was making faux lock wigs and all the influencers were wearing them at the time. I was building something that by every external measure looked like success, but behind closed doors, I was crying every day before I went to work. I felt like I was burnt out, but at the same time, still felt like I wasn't doing enough when I was doing everything. I was exhausted in my body, my spirit was depleted, and somewhere underneath all the bookings and the wig deals and the income, my soul was asking for something different, and I kept ignoring it. Pastor Dharius Daniels had said something recently that stopped me in my tracks. He said I was reaching my goals, but I was hurting my soul. And when I heard that, I felt it, because that's literally how I was feeling at that time. I was reaching every goal I had set for myself, but I was hurting my soul in the process. I started praying and I started asking God to change my circumstances. I had wanted something different. I was done. And honestly, I was tired of what I had built and I wanted a way out of it, because what I had built was slowly draining the life out of me. And God is so funny. He answers prayers, but He doesn't answer them in the way that you would expect Him to. I asked for change and He said, okay, your wish is my command. First, COVID hit. And just like that, I couldn't do hair. And he said, if you think that COVID isn't enough, he took it a little bit step further. I was at a birthday party for my former partner's friend. It was an ATV track. It was nighttime and there weren't any lights on the trail. The only lights that they had were on the bikes. And I didn't want to ride one of my own, so I rode on the back with my partner. And at some point, my partner was racing one of his friends down the trail. I leaned in and told him to be careful. And as soon as I'm leaning back, we're coming up on a sharp turn that none of us saw coming. And the next thing you know, we're flying off that bike. And when I got up off the ground, my wrist was hanging. I was the only one that got hurt. I ended up in the emergency room and they told me the only way for my wrist to heal properly was if I went through with surgery. I had never had surgery before, and of course I was scared. I didn't know what was on the other side of the operating table. I didn't know what recovery was going to look like. All I knew was that everything for me had stopped. I couldn't do hair. I couldn't go to the gym. I couldn't take care of myself the way that I was used to. I literally had no control over anything. And I remember asking God, why me? I was angry. I was angry at my circumstances. I was angry at my partner. I was scared. I was wondering how I was going to move forward and how I was going to pay my bills and how was I going to be able to do everything and take care of myself with one hand when the thing that was keeping me afloat, I can't even do it anymore. And what I didn't know was that God wasn't punishing me. He was just answering my prayers, because I asked for my circumstances to change and He did it. He just used my broken wrist and a global pandemic to do it. Because the truth of the matter is, I wasn't going to stop on my own, and I had already proven that already. I was crying before I went to work, but I was still showing up. I was depleted in my spirit, but I was still taking bookings. I was burned out, but I was still building. So God, in His very specific, very intentional, very dramatic way, stopped my hands. The very instrument that my income depended on, He broke it, because what He was trying to build next couldn't just be built with my hands. While all this was happening, while I was in surgery recovery, while I was going through physical therapy, I was in real estate school to get my license. I had started pursuing it before the accident, but now I'm in class, wrist in recovery, pain medication in my system, literally falling asleep on the oxycodone that they had me on after surgery, but I was still able to pass my real estate exam on the first try. I felt so proud of myself in that moment, because what was supposed to stop me in my tracks made me go even harder. Romans 5:3-4 says, we glory in all our sufferings because suffering produces perseverance. Perseverance produces character, and character produces hope. My broken wrist was the suffering. Me showing up to that real estate class anyway was the perseverance. Me passing on the first try was the character, and what came after was the hope. He was trying to show me that the next thing that I was going to build wasn't just going to be built with my hands, it was going to be built with him. Now, the Bible says faith without works is dead, so I'm going to leave you with the three P's, because the walk requires more than just hearing, it requires you to actually move. The pivot. Stop seeing your breaking point as the end of something and start seeing it as the beginning of something. What if God didn't break what you built to destroy you? What if he broke it to show you the ceiling of what you are building, so he can show you a floor that goes higher than that ceiling ever could? Every breaking has a purpose, and the purpose is never destruction. It is always redirection towards something greater than what you were holding on to. The prompt. I want you to get your journal and answer this honestly. Where in your life right now are you crying on the inside while everything looks fine on the outside? Not the version you show people, not the schedule, the bookings, the wins you post about, the real version, the one where your spirit is tired even though your calendar is full. Write it down. What is your spirit actually asking for that you keep ignoring because you're too busy performing success? That answer is where God is trying to get your attention, and he would rather you hear him now than need a broken wrist to get you to stop. The practicality. Identify one thing in your life right now that cannot function without you physically holding it together. One thing that stops the moment you stop. And ask yourself, is this what God called me to build? Or is this what I built because I didn't trust him enough to build something bigger? You don't have to dismantle it today. Just name it, because naming it is the first step to letting God redirect it towards something that doesn't require you to break yourself to keep it going. The breaking is not the end of the story. It's the moment that God gets to show you what he put on the inside of you that circumstances cannot touch.